Our 1990 Land Cruiser came with mismatching seats. They're old, they're cloth, the back seats are gray, the front seats are brown, there's a couple stains in here. It's not really working for us. So we took out all the seats and we're gonna be reupholstering them today. We want them all to match to be a nice durable brown leather. And if everything goes well with the help of our friend Josh, at the end of this video, these should look like a nicer version of this. Let's get started. We picked up these upholstery kits from Specter Off Road. They make all sorts of things for Land Cruiser, so definitely check them out if you need something. We have both the back seats and the front seats, and we'll be installing those today. After you've taken your seats out, the first step will be to take out the screws from the rear frame. These should be Phillips head screws, depending on how old your truck is. Some of these might be stripped. So just be careful as you're taking them out. The frame is set up in 3 different pieces. Make sure to remove all 3. Our seats have apparently been reupholstered throughout time. Ours happen to have carpet. Yours might not look like this, but we wanted to show you what it looks like once we remove the metal frame around the seat. As you can see, the original frame is very rusty. So are the hog rings, which will make it difficult to take off. Make sure to keep track of where the original hardware is so that it will be easier for you to put this back together. The hog rings are attached at various points on the frame. You have to take off these metal rings. The best tool will probably be a needle nose. If you have something a little bit more specialized, that would be even more helpful. Be real careful with these, that way you don't rip up the bottom too much in case you plan on keeping it. But also, because these are so rusted, it might be easy to break or make it more difficult for you to remove. These could be coiled into each other, but otherwise, with a little finagling, you should be able to wiggle it out. Once you've taken off all the staples, begin removing the screws on around the other seats. Once you've removed the staples and the hardware, you'll need to remove the headrest plastics, here and on the other side. The easiest way to do it is to remove the cover, but in order to remove the cover, you'll need to remove the staples that are holding it in at that halfway point. Once you've taken the fabric off, flip the cushion over, being careful so it doesn't disintegrate. You'll find the plastic pieces, just squeeze and push out. We took this opportunity to remove some of the rust of the original frame by attaching a metal wire brush to a drill. As you can see, this kicked up a lot of dust from the rust, so we attached a shop vac to help suck some of this up as we were working. The process goes by a lot smoother if you have at least 2 people working by removing the rust and vacuuming up the sediments that come off of it. Then we painted it black to ensure that it has a longer lifetime. Put the seat back on. Once that's on, you're going to put the retaining wires through the new flaps. These will hook onto the wires at the bottom. You'll need to make holes in the new material, that way you can put the hog rings through it. You can use something like this, or an awl if you have one, to make the holes. It's a lot easier if you make the hole first and then insert the hog wire. Because this material is new, it will be tough to push through. Take the retaining wire out of the old one and fish it through all the way through the front. Depending on the condition of the original one, this will be a little tricky if it's very bent. Take out the retaining wires from the original covers and fish them through in the back, front, and on the sides. Depending on how bent the original wire is, this might get a little tricky, but just keep working it through. Once the retention wire is in, it gives you enough structure so that you can pull this through. You'll put the hog wire through this and clip it to the various pieces around the frame. All right, so we just finished getting all of the hog ties on. Everything's nice and tight. So the edge is secured. Next part is getting the hardware back on. Prior to putting this back on, we did mark where the holes would be back here. And then, see those two lines there? And then you can kind of feel around, you'll feel the hollow. So just go ahead and poke a hole right through the center. That's where your screws will go. These are marked right and left on the inside. And then these will go right into these tubes here. This attaches to the car and it will go something like this. So now we're just going to finish putting the bolts back on. Make sure that these don't strip. And you'll do the same for both sides. Once you've made your pinhole, cut a cross slot. That way you can feed it right through. All right, and this just shows how the headrests will still work. And you can continue adjusting. Once all of that is done, you can begin putting down your bottom layer and the frame. Make sure to align everything with the original holes. It might be easier for you to start hand tightening it just to get alignment, especially if you're going through something as thick as a carpet. This is what the final product looks like for the back portion of the seat. Now we'll begin taking the hardware off the bottom portion of the seat. The process will be very similar. Make sure to take off all the screws and keep in mind of where everything goes so that you can put it together once you're done. The bottom portion also comes off in different parts of the frame, and it will also have some sort of covering which we'll also remove. The original material is held on by hog ties, so you'll repeat the similar process taking these off to remove the bottom material. Hopefully, removing hog ties gets easier as you go. This does have a couple of retention wires and some elastic to it, so you'll need to pull these apart at the corners. Start with one side first, that will make it easier to remove the whole piece. Keep in mind you'll likely have a lot of rust on these as well, and because you'll need to get really close to them, encourage you to wear some clothing that you don't mind getting rusty and dirty. Similar to the back seat, you'll also need to remove the hog ties from the center points to hold it tight into the seat. Needle nose work best in this as well because it is pretty deep in there. Then you'll remove the seat cover. You might have some of this extra material on top of the springs, which you're welcome to open up, but you'll also need to remove some covering similar to the top where the headrest goes. Again, we took advantage of this opportunity to remove the rust and paint it with a new black coat. Then put the seat back on and begin putting the new cover on. It can be easier if you turn it inside out so that you can insert the retaining wires in here. Then fold it down at the corners, and then you'll fold it down into the frame. sure to pull these tight so that the seat cover remains flat at the bottom. This can be pretty tricky, and it will be a lot easier if you have help from a second person. Once that's complete, begin attaching the hog rings to the edges like before. Again, it's always handy to hang on to the hog rings in the event that you lose some of the original ones so that you have enough to finish the project. Once done with that, reattach the frame and the original hardware. And there you have it, we're ready for the bottom piece to be finished. Once complete, begin reinstalling the seat back into the vehicle. The back portion of the seat should go first and then the bottom. And now we'll get started on the front seats. The process here will be similar. Make sure to remove the size where you would adjust the seat. This plastic can be pretty old, so be gentle here. The same thing with these screws, they can be stripped or rusty, so just make sure to be gentle because it is really difficult to get replacement parts for some of these things. Taking these seats off might also require a little bit of power, hopefully not too much violence, but the process will be the same, removing the hog rings once all of the hardware is removed so that you can remove the original cover. Once all the hog rings are removed from the bottom piece, slide the top cover off. Some portions of the foam might feel like they want to come off, try to keep that one down. And then once you get to about halfway up, you'll need to remove the backing of the inside of the seat. At that fold portion is another portion where it has a retention wire similar to the bottom of the seats and the back, so you'll need to remove those hog rings as well. Then you'll be able to remove all of the foam from the back of the seat. As you can see, this can be a little bit old, a little bit brittle, so make sure to be gentle, especially if you don't have replacement foam to recover that with. The seat quickly falls apart, so make sure to keep in mind of how everything looks and where everything goes so that you're able to put this back together. As you can see, we again took this opportunity to remove some of the rust from the frame and to paint it with black anti-rust paint so that it can have a longer lifeline. Once you're finished, insert the foam back onto the spring frame. This can be a little tricky because the foam is pretty tight, and it'll be really important to make sure that all the corners are inserted before putting the cover back on. Again, once this process is done, put the new hog rings back on to ensure that everything has a nice tight fit. Reinsert the original retaining wire at the bottom portion of the seat cover. And once that is complete, make sure to close the loop in the back so that this keeps a nice tight cover. Ours came with headrest covers, so we just went ahead and inserted those just to make sure that everything matched. The headrest covers that come with the kit do Velcro on, so that's pretty easy to put them on. Once you have everything back together, put the seat back together and insert it into the vehicle. All right, the seats are in, everything matches now, feels really nice. We really noticed the difference in the front seats. The comfort level is a lot better with the new foam. The back seats also feel good. We hope that you found this video educational, informational, and helpful. Thanks for watching.